this one may be a little too hot for you to handle, but I've done it before, Shane. I've been on this show, and I've accurately predicted a national championship in May, and I'm about to do it again, Shane. Them LSU Tigers are winning the national championship this season under Brian Kelly, year 2. And I'll tell you why, Shane. Jayden Daniels, year 2 of the system. I mean, he exceeded all my expectations last year. I didn't even know if he'd start for them, but he was at times a revelation. He's one of 2 quarterbacks returning, Shane, or LSU, excuse me, is one of 2 that returns the starting quarterback and the offensive coordinator, Mike Denbrock in this case. So I think that gives LSU a leg up on continuity and building on what they had last season. Mason Smith, they just announced their preseason All-American. They were all saying was the best player by far, who lost week 1 of the season against Florida State. He is cleared, ready to return. That's huge. Harold Perkins, we've said it before, I'll say it again, Shane. I think he's the best defensive player in the entire country. He's only a sophomore for LSU. I don't know why, but I've continually overlooked, Shane. Next to Mason Smith, they got another defensive lineman, Mekhi Wingo. He was All-American last year. So we're talking 3 potential All-Americans in the middle of this defense. And, oh, yeah, Shane, they added all Pac-12 linebacker Omar Spates. He was a captain for Oregon State last year who went 10-3. Plug him in right next to Harold Perkins. Oh, my God, we're getting even better, Shane. This time last year, offensive line was a huge, huge question mark. They took 2 true freshmen, Shane, put them at offensive tackle. Never before in my life have I seen that in the SEC, 2 true freshmen on the offensive tackle positions. Those guys are obviously back as sophomores, going to be better. The offensive line was a strength, big-time strength, by the end of last season. I think it's a strength again. Biggest question marks, though, Shane, corner. That was a big question mark. They added Denver Harris from Texas A&M. He was a 5-star. And I've seen people just today, Shane, they said, who's the most talented player in the entire transfer portal this entire cycle? Denver Harris was their answer. So we got a potential lockdown corner here. And not only him, Shane, they added J.K. Johnson from Ohio State at corner. They added Deuce Chestnut from Syracuse, who was a freshman All-American last year at corner. They added
He's also a country singer, ain't he? It sounds like a country singer. I don't know about you, man. You kidding to Mark anyway, by any chance? Sorry.
They added Zy Alexander. He was a FCS All-American last year at Southeast Louisiana. So, I mean, we got pieces, Shane, in the secondary. One thing I was kind of, running back, maybe not quite there. John Emery, I don't know if he's actually going to be returning. So they turned around, Shane. They added Brian Kelly's former running back, Logan Diggs, up there at Notre Dame, jumping in the portal. He's now an LSU Tiger. I mean, I think they have shored up every deficiency on this roster. They've attacked it, added pieces on the defensive line. They just so exceeded expectations in year 1. If they can do that again, they're doing it big time, Shane, winning the national championship. I won't sit here and say undefeated because Florida State, very tricky game. I have full confidence they'll beat them. But I think the one that everybody's got circled, including the guy you're ready to kick out the door, Nick Saban, in Tuscaloosa, I think that could potentially be a loss. But I think that's the only loss LSU could potentially have next regular season. So I still think they can get to the SEC championship with 1 loss because I think Alabama potentially could have 2 losses. But maybe they beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Hell, Joe Burrow and company, they beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. We can't just say because they're playing in Tuscaloosa that's an automatic loss.
Well, sometimes the recipe for a college football champ, though, is skipping the SEC championship, Yeah. I think there's been plenty of examples. Auburn, one of them. I think if you can just skip that game and go to a college football playoffs, that's one less game that you have injuries and, an extra week to game prep for who you potentially going to be facing. So I think, one loss is not a bad deal. But, one thing I like about Brian Kelly is something you hit on was the portal. It was strategic. It was almost like, you're making a meal and you got almost all the ingredients at your house, but you got to go to the store and get 3 or 4 things. That's what it felt like. He knew exactly what aisle he was going down, what shelf he was looking for, and he handpicked what he needed to make this LSU team better. And I think that's the cool part. They not only just picked players, but they added competitive depth. LSU, one of the problems they had, they just weren't deep enough last year. I think they're going to be a little bit deeper this year. The defense is bigger, meaner, stronger. Yep. I think it's kind of getting back to the LSU we grew up watching. So, I could easily, it's funny. You could convince me about 3 or 4 of these West teams are going to win the SEC championship or make a college football playoff. So you talking, I can get on board with LSU winning. Yeah, one I'm having trouble with, Mike, is Texas A&M. I'm going to tell you real quick.
Well, I was just going to say also they get A&M at home, which that could be huge. That could be the game that decides the West.
I'm going to